this. So I'm going to start that now. So put on your happy face. All right, let's see where we need to go. All right, this should not take a very long time, but there are a lot of steps, especially with the calendar section. Miss Jerkins already figured that out herself. So I'm going to share my screen with you like we did the other day, and you should see the ConnectED login screen now. So you will go through ClassLink to get connected because you have students rostered to you, and by you I mean teachers. So paras, you'll have to use the teacher's login if they want you to go in to do anything, because you won't be able to get in, because I'm not even able to get in. If you're not rostered to students in focus, it will not let you, it won't give you an account. So reading coaches don't have an account at all. I have to use a demo account from 2015. So that, it looks exactly the same, but I don't have any access to your account. I can't go in and fix anything for you. I wish I could, but I have no power. And the district does not have control over it either. So if there's issues with ConnectED, we have to call the McGraw-Hill help desk, and that could take anywhere from 5 minutes to 4 days, you know, for them to get back to you and figure out your issue, especially with so many people on technology right now. So just follow along as much as you can, take copious notes, and hopefully we won't have to call McGraw-Hill for anything. All right, so I'm gonna log into this Leon Wonders demo account. So when I log in, I see first grade all the way through, well, kindergarten, all the way through 5th grade. You will only see the grade level that you teach. So if you're a 2nd grade teacher, you will see the Reading Wonders Grade 2 Teacher Edition, and you'll also see the Student Edition. So you have power to go in through the teacher portal, but then you can also go in the Student Edition to see what it looks like from their end, which is a really nice feature, just to make sure everything looks the way that you expected it to look for your kids. And it's really student friendly when they go into their edition, and we'll check that out in a little bit. So the first thing that you would want to do is go to your teacher edition portal. I'm going to use 2nd grade just because it's a happy middle ground. All right, so created these demo classes. This one is Clark's training class, demo 830. So when you log into ConnectED, I don't know if any of you have ever logged in. We don't really use it anymore. They trained us on it years ago, but it's not something that we typically use a lot until now. So this is the screen that comes up. It gives you kind of an overview of the week, of the current lesson cycle that you are in based on your calendar. So right now, this calendar has it set for this class to be on Unit 5, Week 5. And that's just based on where the calendar was told to start the year in August and moved on from there. But what we have to remember with this is that Wonders plans on a 5-day cycle, teach for 4, test on the 5th day. So their pacing is way ahead of where we actually are. So I think most of us are finishing up Unit 3 right now. So we're nowhere near the end of Unit 5. So that brings me to my first point, which is that we have to adjust our calendars. So the first thing that you need to do kind of after this training is to go and adjust your calendar immediately, or else all of the material will not be pushed to your students for the actual week that you want them to have it. So if they were to log in right now, they would see games and text and assignments or resources for Unit 5, Lesson 5, which is not what we want them to see. So to adjust your calendar, you go to Plan up in the top left-hand corner and then go to Calendar. And it comes up for you nice and color-coded. You can see the different weeks of instruction. Right, so I'm not gonna lie to you. This calendar is a pain in the butt. It is very picky about the way that it will let you place lessons on the calendar. So just bear with me while I show you some tips and tricks on how to navigate that. And anyway, let's just get into it. All right, so let's say that we want to start our students on the 13th of April, which is when we start our distance learning platform. And we are gonna do like Unit 3, Lesson 5. So we are nowhere near Unit 3, Lesson 5. So all we have to do is go backwards on the calendar until we find it. And I think it's back in December is where they have it, because again, their pacing is not the pacing that we use. So here's Unit 3, Week 5. So once we found what we want, can you guys see that, or do I need to make it bigger? Okay,
Yes.
we'll zoom in just a little bit. All right, so Unit 3, Week 5, we want to click on the arrow on the first day of the lesson, and then it gives you some options here. We want to move the lesson block. Okay, we want to move it, and we want to move it to as close to April 13th as it will let us move it. So we click Move Lesson Block, and then we're going to click through the calendar until we get as close to April 13th as we can. So we can't pick April 13th because there's already something there. So we are going to go ahead and just choose the 16th for now because that's close, and then we'll be doing some other things to get it to shift back to where we need it. So I'm going to move it to the 16th, which is close to the 13th. Then it's gone. So now you see Unit 3, Week 4, and then Unit 3, Week 6. So 5 has been moved. So then we would go back to April. There's a lot of clicking. All right, so here we have, you see Unit 6, Week 1, and then Unit 3, Week 5 is plopped down right there where we put it. So we would like for it to start on the 13th, but it won't let us move it to the 13th because of Unit 6, Week 1. So we have to go to Unit 6, Week 1 and condense the lesson block of that one so that it's shorter, so that we can move Unit 3, Week 5 into the slot we want. So we need to take away these 2 days of this lesson cycle so that it moves the other one. So we're gonna condense the lesson block. We wanna remove day 5. It'll only let you remove 1 day at a time. So we remove that one. It'll load, there it goes. See, it already moved that backwards for us. And then we want to remove day 4. Now, Unit 3, Week 5 is exactly where we want it on the 13th. Okay, so it's not necessarily hard. It's just a lot of, gotta go find what I want, move it to as close as I can get it, shrink the other one or expand the other one until everything is sitting on the days where I want it to be. So Unit 3, Lesson 5 currently has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teaching days in it because I added a teaching day and I didn't mean to do that before the training started. So typically they only have 5 days of instruction in the Wonders lesson because Wonders is a teach for 4, test 5. We don't do it like that. We usually teach 6 and test on the 7th day. Except kindergarten, Miss Brown, I know y'all's pacing is different than that because you have 10 units where everybody else only has 6. So yours is a little stretched out beyond 7 days, which is fine. All right, so I went ahead and added a 6th teaching day to this lesson cycle. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, in order to do that, all I did was click the arrow at the end of it and say expand, and then add on to the 6th day. But now it will only let you expand a lesson block up to 6 days. It will not let you go past that. So if you are planning to teach longer than 6 days, we can do a workaround that lets us trick the system into giving us what we want. So we know that we teach for 6, but then we don't want to start unit, the next unit on the next day because we're testing. But we found out yesterday that the test isn't really something that we're going to be using. So if you want to keep that 7th day, that's fine. Or you can just leave it at 6 and then move on to the next lesson cycle because there's no test. It's up to you. If you wanted a 7th day, it won't let you expand to a 7th day. So you just need to go to the next day and add a non-teaching day. And I would just call it Unit 3, Week 5, Day 7. Okay. And it puts that non-teaching day in your calendar, so it pushes the next start date up another day. So it looks like this is a non-teaching day. Basically, Wonders thinks that we're on holiday that day, is what the system now believes, that we're just not in school. So it will leave the previous lesson there for them until the next day. So it's not that it's really a 7-day cycle, it's a 6-day cycle with a holiday. So that, I told you, the calendar is very weird. It does not do everything that we want it to do. All right, I see a chat. What do you think about moving back to the 5-day cycle to keep the weeks consistent? I think that is a perfectly fine idea. Because we are only using the 2 texts, you know, we're only using the anthology and the workshop and the Your Turn practice material. So I honestly don't know that you'll need 6 days anyways. It might be fine just to leave it at the 5 days that it has, because you're gonna eventually run out of stuff to do if you stretch it out too long. And with this being kind of a pass-fail situation, we know that there's a little flexibility in kind of the amount of rigor that we're going to be able to provide and the amount of practice that is needed to master what it is we expect them to do during this distance learning period. So that was a great question.
Cycle like that, I feel like would be a lot easier as well for the paper-based people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Ms. Neal, that was a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, I mean, I don't see an issue with leaving it at 5 days if you think you can cover everything in the 5 days, and I think that you can, because you have complete control over how much or how little you give them to do each day. And there are so many parts of the Wonders curriculum that we're not going to even use during this distance learning time. There's only, you know, we're not going to spend a ton of time on the grammar. We're not, I mean, we don't have the resources and the time to get all that together by the 13th. That's really only a week and a couple days away. So that is how you adjust the calendar. So if we put Unit 3, Week 5 there, now obviously we don't want it to go to Unit 6, Week 2 after that. So then you would need to go find Unit 4, Week 1 and move it to the 22nd or the 21st or whatever, as close as it'll let you get it. And then again, shrink things or expand things until it shifts onto the start day that you want it to be on. So again, it's not hard, it's just
tedious.
It's very annoying.
The devil.
That's exactly what I called it. I got to check, Ms. Jerkins, can I read them the text that you sent me?
Oh yeah, starting at what, 11 o'clock last night?
She sent me a text. It was, where is it? Oh, 10:40 last night. I was already asleep. I was not. She said, I think I royally messed up my ConnectED page. I stupidly moved all sorts of things around in my calendar, and now it's a big mess. The calendar is not nice. It's very wonky. It's very picky. It's not you.
It will make you cry. I'm not kidding.
It's very, but now that you know it's a pain, be careful and just make slow choices and steady choices until it falls where you want it. And again, I don't have access to go in there and help you fix it, but I could use I can always Zoom you, phone call you, or you can give me your password and I'll go in and fix it for you. Whatever we need to do to make it work is what we'll do. So hopefully you won't have too many issues once you get in there and start playing around with it. But again, if you don't have it lined up where you want it, they're not going to have the correct material. You could always go and assign them the material for the week that you want, But then if they were to go out of their to-do list and explore in the read section and the game section, none of it's going to match what you had them do in their assignments. So it's going to be two completely different sets of skills and sets of genres of text and games that don't match the phonics activity. It's just going to be a mess, and you're not going to want to deal with it. So the calendar is important. And once it's set up, that's pretty much, you're done. So just go ahead and do that as soon as possible so that it's ready to move forward. All right, so calendar is fixed for now. Let's just operate on the assumption that we're planning for Unit 3, Lesson 5 for right now. So right now, I'm going to go back to the main page just by clicking the Wonders icon at the top. And it's still showing me Unit 5, Lesson 5, because right now on my calendar on April 3rd, I'm teaching Unit 5, Lesson 5, or so it thinks, which is fine because there's no one logging in. I don't care what this week's lesson cycle is because they're never going to see it. So I can toggle my units and my weeks up here to find the material I want to assign for Unit 3, Lesson 5. So I will just go to Unit 3, Week 5, and it will update the resource page for you. So this weekly concept is expressing yourself. The essential question is, how do you express yourself? So pay close attention to these things at the top to make sure that you're in the unit that you want to be in. If you accidentally went to Unit 3, Lesson 4, just take a look at that essential question and you'll be able to tell pretty quick that that's not the lesson that you meant to be on, because you should know which essential question you're working with that week. All right, so let's go back. Unit 3, Week 5. So this is our resource page. It gives us an overview of the week's games. They're all right here. There are 16 games available for the week of Unit 3, Lesson 5. There are fluency word automaticity games. There's a grammar activity, so you could assign grammar. It won't be like a full lesson, but it does walk them through a little bit of instruction and give them feedback as they're playing the game so that they know what they're getting wrong and why that it's wrong. So there are grammar activities, sentence mechanics, high frequency word activities, phonemic awareness. This one is addition and deletion of phonemes, blending words with long U, identify and generate alliteration, phonics blending, retelling cards, spelling, and then vocabulary and some other, I don't know what that is. Oh, structural analysis, comparative endings, ER and EST. So there are plenty of games that are already built into the system that you can assign to them. These games will be pushed to them automatically in the games section of their account. But if there's some that you specifically want them to do for your lesson, you would just assign those games to them. And we'll talk about how to assign things in just a second. They also have a weekly printables section up here. Beyond reproducibles refers to the Your Turn practice page that is elevated slightly above the regular on grade level practice page. So beyond means it's got more complex language, and it might have a couple different questions on it that are a little more complex. So you might want to assign beyond to your high level kids. A reproducibles, I don't know why it doesn't say that whole word like it does beyond, but A is approaching. So A for approaching means that they're not quite working on grade level, and you would assign those to your students that might struggle a little bit because the language is a little less complex. There's also ELL reproducibles, which are similar to approaching level, but they take the time to give visual examples that go with the language that they use for English language learners to be able to match the word to a visual image to really be able to process what the language is saying. Then you have your regular Your Turn practice book pages, and then grammar reproducibles and phonics reproducibles as well. So it kind of gives you an outline of all of those Your Turn practice pages for the week. That's not all of them, that's just some of them. Then it has over here the planner and the key skills. We really aren't going to be using the planner and the key skills because we're not designing a presentation to actually teach from this platform. So all that we really need to know about is the game section, the weekly printables section, and then up here where it says resources and resource library. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to the resource library for Unit 3, Lesson 5. And this is where everything for Unit 3, Lesson 5 can be found. So they give you an overview on the welcome page, but this is where everything else is that you're going to want. Okay, so there's the weekly opener, there's graphic organizers, and it sections it off based on the section of the lesson that you would be teaching. So this is the building background section. So this kind of stuff would be used on like day 1, okay? And that's up here as well. These numbers is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. That's what those are. It might not be outlined the way that you would teach a day 1 or day 2. It's the way that Wonders is written to do things on day 1, day 2. Now we move things around and you're welcome to move things around here. But again, your lesson plan is going to dictate what's on day 1 and what's on day 2. And the assignments that you give your kids, you will select the start day that you want it to open so they don't even see that resource until the day you want them to. So let's talk about, I guess the rest of it is kind of self-explanatory, but literally so many different phonics practice sheets, phonics games, the Your Turn practice pages, sound spelling cards, Unit 3, Week 5 vocabulary practice and the practice pages. And then there's the shared read, the leveled readers. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. There's so much stuff. If you're looking for something specific and you can't find it in here, there's a search bar up there. If you enter the name of the text you're looking for, it'll bring it up for you. So you don't have to worry about scrolling through all of this if you don't want to. All right, so let's talk about how we would actually assign things to our students. So let's say we want to assign the weekly opener video and the graphic organizer that goes with it. So we would click on the little settings toggle right here that looks like a gear. We would click that settings toggle and we can open, we can get details, it'll give you the standards, or here you see assign this resource. Now, they've also added a functionality that now ConnectED merges with Google Classroom, which is kind of a shame that we're using the Microsoft version of that so that it doesn't line up nicely, because if we had Google Classroom, we could assign this directly into that software program and they would never even have to log in to ConnectED. They would get everything through Google Classroom. So we have Microsoft, so we don't have the luxury of assigning through Teams, but we can assign it on here and they can get on, no problem. So we just click assign this resource and it will take you to the assignment manager. You can see over here, they've already attached the resource for you. And then you would just give the assignment a name. So let's say Unit 3, Lesson 5, Essential Question Video. Lynch, I'm like you. I know people are watching me type and now it's making me anxious and I can't type right. All right, lesson video. And then here's where you could give them further instructions on what you want them to do. You know, I want you to watch it once just for enjoyment and just to get the gist of it. And then I want you to watch it again and pay particular attention to whatever the essential question is, how people express themselves. I want you to really watch for how many different ideas you can find of how people can express themselves, stuff like that. Then up here, it says requires teacher review. That means, do you need to grade it? So the fact that they watched a video, that's not something that you need to really grade. There's nothing that they did to complete it. So you don't really have to review that. If you did want to give something a grade, you would say yes. Okay, but for the video, no, I don't want to grade it. I just want you to watch it. And this is the student audio recorder. So they can dictate to a microphone to the mic in their computer and upload an audio file of them answering a question or something. So maybe for some accommodations where you have your younger learners, like your first graders and your kindergartners, if they're on here and you don't want them to have to type all their answers, if you turn the audio recorder on, they can record their answers by talking it to you, and you can listen to it instead of having them type it into the system. So that's a really nice accommodation for any of our students with physical disabilities in upper grades, or our students that are just too young to know how to navigate the keyboard. Down here, we have our start date. So we would want that to open on the 13th. Due date, we would want them to watch it by, I don't know, the 15th. If they haven't watched it by then, it'll let you know that it's late. And expiration date is when it will completely disappear from their to-do list and they will no longer be able to watch it. So we don't want to set that too close, because some of them are going to have difficulty being on every day. But maybe, a week after the assignment is probably a good time frame. So by the 20th, if you haven't watched it in over a week, it's going away. And it'll let you know that they didn't do it in time for the expiration date. If you never want it to leave and you always want it to be available, I would just pick like a date in June for the expiration date so that it never leaves until they finished it, and then it will go away. But if they never do it, it'll stay in their to-do list and it will tell you that they haven't done it yet. So that's entirely up to you. Here are the students for this fake class that I'm in. So we can either assign to all students, we can assign to all of the English language learners, which is just one of them in this class. We could assign to the approaching level students, so there's 3 of them. We could do on grade level, beyond grade level. For something like this, that's just the video, we would want all of them to just watch that. And you're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time differentiating between your approaching and beyond on this, because this is our core standard time. We're just exposing them to the grade level curriculum. And then during iReady is when they will get their enrichment or intervention to close in some of those gaps or to meet their needs. So I would most of the time select all. And then all you do is click assign. Now it says your assignment has been made. You can assign it to other students, but I don't have any more. You can view the assignment, or you can just be done. So let's go to view assignment so you can see what that looks like. So here it shows you that no one has submitted it yet and no one has completed it yet, obviously. If it's something that requires teacher review, it will show that it's submitted, but you physically have to go in and mark it complete after you've looked at it and graded it and given them the feedback. If it's not teacher review, it will show up as submitted and completed all at once. So they did it and it's complete because you don't have to look at it. And then you can get details about each student submission by clicking the detail button. So if it is something that you want them to type an answer into, you would click into the details for that student to be able to see their response or listen to their audio recording that they provided to you. All right, so we've assigned that, but now let's look at something where they would actually have to do some work and then turn it back in. So let's go back to our resource library. And after the essential question video, a lot of us typically have them do these graphic organizers. So let's go ahead and assign that as well. And then we'll look at what these assignments look like from their point of view. So this is our EQ graphic organizer. It does require teacher review because I want to see what they've completed on that graphic organizer. Yes, we can turn the audio recorder on for any people that may not want to type or can't type their answers. And then I would provide them very explicit instructions, so that they know exactly what you want. Share with me at least 3 ideas from the video about how people can express themselves. Something like that, whatever it is that you want them to do. Again, you can assign it to all students or just a handful of them. We want them to do that on the 13th, due date on the 15th, expiration June 5th. Everybody will get this graphic organizer and we assign. Right. Now, when students open up that assignment, it will open up like this in an interactive workspace for them to complete. So, excuse me, they can either choose the pencil tool and write on it. You can get rid of everything. Where's the eraser? Oh, undo. They can type onto it like that. And then they can move it around if they want to put it in a different box, things like that. They can do shapes. They can do a line. They can do a circle. There's all kinds of different stuff. They can highlight. So if ever you have a text and you are in like the shared read and you screenshot a piece of it, they can highlight portions of it that show context clues, or they could highlight the main idea or key details. Things like that are what those features can be used for. So after they've finished their work, they would need to save it. Okay, so they'll save it and then they'll have a button that says turn in. So they would also turn it in to you. This is not there because this is not actually a student account, but they'll save it and then just turn it in. And if they hit turn in without saving it, I believe it saves it and turns it in. But if they work on part of it and don't finish, they can save it and close it and go back to it later, and it will still have the work that they did. So until they hit turn in, you won't see it. So if they don't hit turn in, it won't actually give it back to you. So that could be a barrier sometimes. Well, I did it, I saved it, but well, did you hit turn in? Oh no, so they have to go back and hit turn in. So that might be a thing. So if they say they did it, make sure you follow up with if they hit the turn in button or not. Let's look at a your turn practice page in this example. So it will always open it in the interactive version for them in an assignment. So here's the your turn practice page. It gives them all of the directions. And then, so write each word and ending to make a new word, write it on the line. So strong plus EST becomes strongest. So they could, again, either write that with the pencil tool, although that is very difficult and it looks a mess. Or they can type it in. Or if you turned the audio recorder on, there will be an icon for them to record their voice and will be able to say, number one, strongest, STRONGEST. So you'd have to give them directions for how you want them to say it to you as well. So if you just wanted them to say the word in the audio recording, that would be fine too. But that's entirely up to you, and if you even have that turned on. And then again, they would save it. They also have the option to print it out if they wanted to, or if they can at their house. So they save it and then they would turn it back into you. All right, let's see one of the games. Let's look at high frequency words. All right, so this is the sentence builder. So that's working on like their the structural analysis of their sentences and making sure that they have that subject, predicate, knowledge, verb, tenses, and things like that down. So make a sentence, pick one word or one punctuation mark from each column. So you pick one from here, one here, one here, one here. So let's say America is my home, period. Okay, they could check it. Oh, not letting me check it. Do I have to drag it?
It looks
I clearly don't know what I'm doing. America. Won't let me drag it.
Are you perhaps in like a teacher preview or something, and that's
I
why it's not
am. Yeah,
do
I
it?
don't think it
Yeah,
likes me doing it like
that's
this.
probably why. It's probably like
Yeah,
showing you the
yeah.
option of what it
Because
should.
it's picking them, but it won't let me check it because I guess this is not a real assignment.
Yeah.
So this is the sentence builder. It does come with the help function. It will tell them exactly what they need to do. Then those are kind of like mini lessons and games. And then there's some that are just straight up games that look more like this one. And they can use all kinds of different stuff to divide the sentences or underline, word highlight, identify certain letters, depends on what the directions tell them to do. Highlight the word that is used to combine two shorter sentences into one longer sentence. So they're looking for conjunctions. So and, so, but, from. Oh, and let me check that one. Oh, and I got it wrong. That's embarrassing. Oh, I didn't read the whole thing. I can get directions from a cookbook or a cooking show. Got it. So then it'll tell them, there you go. Then it'll tell them they got it right. It will also read to them if they need it. So it will always read them all of the directions. It will read them all of the sentences. So that accommodation exists as well. Even for your ones that don't technically get that accommodation of oral presentation, Wonders doesn't know that. So it gives it to everybody. So they can always click on the sound icon to get read to if they need it. All right, so what else okay, there's songs. They're very, they're very cheesy, but they're cute, especially for younger students. So if you wanted to assign songs that could have purpose in your primary classrooms as well. And the songs are tied to certain activities. So this is about purpose and audience. So making sure you kind of have in mind who you're writing to when you're writing. So this song, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. I can't even hear it because I have these headphones in, I think. Yeah. All right, well, I'm not going to sing it for you, but the songs exist and you can assign those to students as well. There are so many resources in here, you guys. If you want specific text to assign, all of the ebooks are down here in their own section, and it will start with the ones for the week that you're in. So to assign a text, you just click the thing, you assign the resource, and just like the other assignment, you fill in all the information and it just gives them the book. And they have interactive features that they can complete while they're reading. So once they open a text, right, so this is a difficult decision. Anywhere you see the sound icon, it will read the page to them. Anywhere you see this icon, it is a language summary and it will read it to them from there as well. I'm not really sure what the difference is between the two icons. This one shows another piece of it as it reads. This one just reads it out loud. And it highlights the words as it reads. So if I click this one, as it reads, you can see it going along to help the students keep track of where the text is going. And then they can stop it anytime they want to. All right, essential question is down here. So let's go look at the interactive features. It's called a notepad. Okay, so right here where there are questions, make connections questions, there is a notepad or notebook down there. They can click on that and the questions are in here for them and it says my binder. So they can submit answers to those questions to you. How are Paul and Wyatt good citizens? They are good citizens because they blah, 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 blah. Then they submit that it saves it in their binder, and you are able to see what they typed in for the answers to those questions in the text. That might be really beneficial for the literature anthology text, where there's actual, like 4 or 5 questions at the end of the story that you want them to answer, especially with our upper grades. These are, of course, the mini lesson pages, and they can complete these as well. But there is an actual mini lesson that you can assign that goes over the same information as textbook, but in a more interactive, direct instruction format. So let's go check those out before we look at anything else, because these are going to be kind of a lifesaver if you can't direct instruct, or it could be a lifesaver to guide a video lesson that you make just using that tutorial, so that then they see the video and then they go to use that mini lesson and they've already seen you do it. So it'll be something that's familiar to them. So let's go to day 2, because that's where all those are. Let's find one that we want to use. All right, let's do comprehension skill main idea. So the mini lessons all look like this. They're these weird tile icons. Comprehension skills have textbooks. Comprehension strategies have a book and an iPad. Don't ask me why, that's just what they put on there. And then there are also mini lessons, probably on day 3, I believe, because they're not right there, for the vocabulary strategy and the genre as well. So if we look at one of the mini lessons, you can assign this and it will open up exactly like this for the student. So as you read, they've got the beat, think about the main idea and details, and then it tells them what main idea is, what key details are, and how they are related to each other. So once they've looked at that, then they would click the arrow to continue. There's nothing for them to do yet. Okay, then it says, as you read, they've got the beat, highlight key details, the PS, what? Highlight key details, the PS22 chorus. I don't know what that means. That's clearly a typo. Use the details to help you figure out the main idea. Use the think aloud to help you. Click the arrow to continue. There's a think aloud down here, and if they click it, says, as I reread each section, I will look for key details about the PS22 chorus. The first section tells how the chorus sings at important events. Singing at the White House is a good example of what they do. So this is like the guided practice of it, kind of modeling it for them and what it's going to look like. And they can actually look at the graphic organizer. They can't complete this one. That's just an example for them. And it also gives them the section that it wants them to read right over here to the right. So they don't even have to go out of it and look there, because it's right here for them. Okay, and so then we move on and it keeps modeling it for them. So these students from Staten Island had a concert at the White House. If they click it again, it fills in that graphic organizer for them to show that that's what you would do with that information. First detail of box in the graphic organizer is they performed at the White House, and you can see it in the graphic organizer now. And as they click through, it gives them, another task. They have to read this section and do the same thing. It again models it for them. It models it twice. So it models it here, and then it'll put that in the graphic organizer and also on the list at the right. And then the last section, you can see it change colors. Now it says your turn. So it modeled it the first 2 times with the sections, and now they have to do the last section on their own. So they read through this, scrolls down. They now have the tools down here that they didn't have when it was modeling, because they didn't have to do anything. But where the tools are, they can actually highlight on this text. And then they can select their type tool and type into the graphic organizer the final detail that they found to support the main idea. And then there's a second section where they have to read all of those details and write the main idea of the text. So it models finding 2 of the details. They have to find one, and then they have to put the details together. And then to submit that to you, they would hit save, and they would have a turn in button in their to-do list that they would hit to give it back to you. So it really is nice. It's not as good as a teacher, but it is something that will guide them through the steps and kind of do what you would have done in the classroom, but a little more boring. And again, there's always the option of making a video tutorial that follows this mini lesson so that they've seen a video of it and now they've watched the mini lesson, so they get a little bit of a more better understanding of what they're doing. Let's see, I think that's pretty much it for this section. There are so many resources that you have in here that you're not going to use, but let's go take a look at what it looks like from the student perspective. Before I do that, does anybody have any questions? Okay, cool, let's move on.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute my thing for a second.
Oh, that's okay.
So I noticed like you can go in and set the set a student to approaching level or beyond level.
Mhm.
Like, does that mean that's the, like when they give them directions on the student portal, will it give them directions as in like approaching level, or like what is it even worth going in and changing their levels?
The only thing that it does is when it pushes out their like leveled readers, because let me show you from their point of view, because that will help me answer that question for you.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go back to the ConnectED home screen, and instead of teacher edition, I'm going to go into the student edition. So when the students log in, this is what they see. Now, they will not see all of these classes. They are probably only enrolled in one class. It might have two on there. It might be homeroom and language arts. It might just be one. I'm not sure what theirs looks like because again, this is a demo account and I don't have access to actually go into your student's account. So you might want to go in there just to see if there are more than one class option so that you can remember to tell them which one they're supposed to pick. Because if you assign something in language arts, but they click homeroom, they're not going to see the assignment because they're in the wrong class. So make sure that there's not multiple options. And if there are multiple options, you can either delete those other classes, and I'll show you how to do that, or just tell them which one they need to pick. All right, so I'm going to pick the 8:30 a.m. demo class. All right, so it says, hi, Leon County, Florida, but it will actually say their name, and it gives them the weekly concept and the essential question. Now, right now, this is not showing the assignments that I made because it's not April 13th yet. It's still only April 3rd. So in this fake demo account, in my to-do list, there is nothing because for the 3rd, there's nothing that's been assigned. So on their home screen, they have to do, they have words to know, which is their vocabulary section. They have a writing section, the game section, and a reading section. So Erica, to answer your question, if you have coded them as a beyond level learner or a ELL or an approaching level learner, the activities that it gives them for the games and for their leveled readers and for vocabulary, the automatically pushed stuff will be on their assigned level. So they would get the orange leveled reader in here instead of the blue one or the green one. And they would get the approaching level games instead of the on level games. So to give them access to those other resources on grade level, you would have to assign it to them.
Got it.
Yeah, but so that is, if you want them to be differentiated in that way, then yes, it is worth going in to do those assignments because the games and the readings will be pushed to them automatically. Now, like your turn practice pages, it won't push those automatically. It wants you to tell it, you assign that.
Right, but they already do the on-level ones at school, so that would be okay, right?
Exactly, and this is our core time. You know, this isn't intervention time, so we don't want to spend too much time on below or above level anyway.
Okay.
especially during distance learning, because this is really just exposure to the first grade curriculum. And then iReady will take care of the rest for us
Okay.
as much as it can.
Okay.
So let's
Thank
look
you.
at, so in their to-do list would be any assignments that you had created for them. So right now there's nothing. Anything that's in past assignments would be all of the things that have expired and are now in the archive. So if we set the expiration date like June 5th, it will always be in here. It will still show up in their to-do list. It will just have a green check next to it to show that they've already done it. So if you want it to disappear after the week is over, you need to set the expiration date for something, maybe a week after you've assigned it. So anything that's old would go in past assignments. Anything that's in my work would be anything that they've saved and not turned back into you yet. So this is that mini lesson that I was just typing on a few minutes ago. So it shows that I've done something to it, but it's still just sitting in here. So if I open that back up and click through it and go to where my assignment was over here, this is where they actually have to do the work, 1 and 2. Again, they would save whatever it was that they've put in there and then close it. And again, they will have a button here that says turn in. I don't have a button like that because these are fake people. It's just not real. So it's not actually letting, you can't see a turn in option because there is nothing. Anything that they've completed and then turned into you will go into past work. Okay, so anything that they've saved and is not turned in yet will be in their little work binder. And when they submit it, it should go away because they've already turned it back in. You have the option of returning it to them to complete or revise the thing that they did if it's not up to your expectations. So when they turn it in, you can type some feedback and either mark it complete or hit return to student. And it will bring it back to their binder and say, your teacher wants you to look at this again, fix it, and then turn it back in. So you do have that option to give it back to them, let them fix it, and then send it back to you a second time without having to recreate the whole assignment. All right, so that's what theirs looks like. Words to know is the vocabulary section. These, obviously, this is not how many words it will give them. The only words that it will give them are the 8 vocabulary words for that lesson that are in the actual vocabulary page, mini lesson of the week. So there's a lot of these in here. I'm not sure why. Again, it's a fake account. It's got weird things going on. So once they click a word, it will bring up a context sentence, either a picture or a video. And then if they click on routine, it will give them the definition, an example, and then ask them a follow-up question to make a connection to that vocabulary word. And it will, again, read to them if they click the sound icon. The writing section is not something that I've used with any students other than 5th grade. So I'm not sure what that would look like. These are pushed to them automatically. If you don't assign it, they would just have to go and stumble upon it and do it if they wanted to. But you can assign these writing mini lessons as well from the teacher portal. And they look just like the other mini lessons, except the focus is on writing instead of a reading comprehension skill. So they give them all these instructions for what to do, and then they have to actually write responses based on whatever the lesson is telling them to do. We also have the game section. So there are no available resources because, again, this is a fake account. If it was your student, it would have the games that are available for Unit 3, Lesson 5, or whatever lesson that you're on. It'll automatically push those to them. And if you've coded them as beyond or approaching, it will code their games the same way. And then the read section is where all of the texts for the week are housed. Anthology, literature, or workshop, anthology, the paired text in the anthology, and the leveled reader that is on their assigned level. So here, and then this looks like it's from the Your Turn practice book, perhaps. Oh no, this is a reader's theater. That's interesting. They could do that with their brothers and sisters, I guess. That's a reader's theater. So whatever week this is on must have genre focus of drama and play. Then there's a Time for Kids article, and the more you scroll, you see more and more of them. Not sure which of those is the leveled reader, but one of them is the leveled reader for on grade level. So that's where all of that would be housed. Up here where it says ABC is a glossary. If they click on that, it gives them all of the vocabulary words in their grade level of wonders. So if they need to know what certain things mean, or you want them to define them without looking at that definition, and you're trying to teach them how to use like dictionaries or glossaries, they can use this section instead. This is to create a note. Not sure what they would use that for, but if they wanted to make a note, they can. You won't see them. It's just notes for themselves. And then the school to home section gives them like the family letter and the parent letter for that week of instruction. So this week, our class will be focusing on the important skills covered during the last 5 weeks, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then they could either print this off, and there's a message section. So you could send messages to your students through this program, but we're probably going to use Teams for that. And we have Remind to communicate with our families as well. So we don't really need to add another layer of, oh, I sent you a message. Did you see it? Oh, well, no, because it was in ConnectED and we've been using this. So I wouldn't use that feature too often if I were you. And that's what the student edition looks like. Are there any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward for them. They just log in and click their to-do list and do whatever you put in there for them. The only thing that's going to be remotely annoying is the calendar when you go in to do that. But if there are no other questions, I'm done. Anybody? All right. Okay. Well, if you don't have any questions, you are good to go. And if you get in there and
Miss, I have one. Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
I can.
Where can we find the recorded session? Since I came in late, I want to kind of look at it.
Sure. I am uploading all of them into our Hartsfield teacher team in Microsoft Teams. So they are in the files section, but I've also linked them to the post section where everybody's been talking and typing back to each other. So there's links right there.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
And this one will be up there at some point today as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
All
right.
I got my calendar figured out.
Oh, good. I told you we could fix it.
Yay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys. You can go if you are done.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Sorry, stay on for just a
Mr.
second.
Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Where did you say that I could find these resources again? Because I kind of want to review as I'm trying to.
The recorded sessions.
Yes, please.
They are in the Microsoft Teams platform in the files. So yeah, they're in Microsoft Teams in our Hartsfield team. Okay. And I don't know if that's just got teachers in it or if it also has staff. I'll have to look. And if it's not there, I will send them all to you separately. I'll send them all to the staff separate if they're not in there. Yep.
All right, then. Thank you.
No problem. Bye, Ms. Kessler. Let me turn